This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It's still a meat and potatoes football game, no matter how fancy and state-of-the-art and pretty you're supposed to look. If you get decimated at the line of scrimmage, you're going to lose.
Carson is 5 of 5, 44 yards, back to pass. Oh, he's hit, he's sacked. Patrick Queen came in like royalty and snapped our quarterback and drove him back. Will Reichert is heading in for a field goal try. Might have backed Reichert out of field goal range. Wentz, he's back to pass. He runs out to the right, and he is sacked by Nick Herbig. Nick Herbig with 2 sacks this season, and that's going to be a loss of 11 yards, so Ryan Wright is in the punt. Second and 11 from the Steelers 45. Wentz fakes a toss to Mason, and then he looked to the right side, and he looked right into the eyes of Keanu Benton, who sacked him. 2 sacks for Keanu Benton, and Carson Wentz has been sacked 4 times. Gotta get something going right now, boys. 21-6 Steelers, minute and a half to go in the third quarter. 3rd and 9. Wentz facing a middle blitz. He's sacked. Taken down back at the 7-yard line. That's a 3-sack game for Keanu Benton. Are you kidding me? Not T.J. Watt, not Cam Hayward. Keanu Benton. Are you? Come on, man.
Wow.
I feel like he almost swore there at the end.
He came very close.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like he was surrounded by Steelers fans and seemed to be maybe playing with that a little bit, too.
Yes, we'll hear from them later.
We will hear from them later.
A very couple funny moments.
The official stat I saw was that the Vikings quarterback was pressured on 21 of 54 dropbacks. Of course, he was sacked, I think, a grand total of 6 times. I thought he got physically beaten up on a couple of occasions for sure. And frankly, under those conditions, I thought held in reasonably well. We're going to get to this later. It's another talking point from this game. I don't understand. Look, let me back up. I get it. You didn't have your regular offensive line. It was already compromised, and then it gets further compromised as the game goes on. But I am a firm believer in when you're running the team or you're running the offense, certainly, and calling the plays, do what you can to, even if you don't run the same offense, to implement some of what the Pittsburgh Steelers did with Aaron Rodgers. Take the snap, throw. Snap, throw. Snap, okay, maybe a second. Throw. I don't care if it's 2 yards. I don't care if it's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Get rid of it. And I didn't see, for me, enough of that. And it may not have mattered. But let's face it, what do we end up losing by 3?
Yeah.
So who's to say that there might not have been a way to manufacture a victory, to steal a victory, if you want to look at it that way. If you'd gone well, frankly, I thought it was more like what we saw in the first drive, where the ball was getting out of Wentz's hands pretty quickly. But I don't think that was the case for most of the afternoon. And the mismatch at the line of scrimmage, we'll get to it on the other side of the ball as well. But it was dramatic, and it was a lot more dramatic than I think it was supposed to be. We couldn't run anywhere near as effectively as we did a week ago. Had a couple of decent runs, but not nearly enough. And you had a quarterback who especially, the second half especially, was utterly and completely under siege, right? Did JJ, how many catches did JJ have in the second half? I know at the half he had 8 catches for 97 yards.
Let's see what he finished with.
But
He finished with 11 or 10. I'm sorry.
The stats regarding under pressure. Look, no quarterback looks good under pressure. I get that, but the numbers second half, according to our guy Mark Craig, were that Wentz completed 1 of 6 passes under duress for 16 yards and a touchdown. Also sacked 4 times. Now, I get it. The intentional grounding penalty looked bad. I'm not as down on that as others, simply because he's about to be killed. He knows that, frankly, he's got to get rid of the ball. It's the only way he can stop the clock. Now, I know intentional grounding, you end up losing 10 seconds under the conditions that the Vikings were in anyway. But, I mean, name me a quarterback. He literally, before he had a chance to do anything, had I don't remember who the defensive guy was. Was that the one?
Yeah.
On him. I mean, I don't know. So you're going to just sort of throw the ball. You're just going to hope that there happens to be a receiver close enough that you can get away with it. Is it ideal quarterbacking? No, but nothing about that situation was ideal. I was actually more bothered by the fact that they then followed that with a delay of game. That's the part that bothered me. They didn't get the playoff, which made absolutely no sense to me. I don't care about the scoreboard or the shot clock not being in their vision. None of that made any sense to me at all. So, again, there'll be a lot of line of scrimmage talk during today's broadcast because both ways, again, similar to that extent to the Atlanta game, we were physically whipped. We can talk about the mental side of the game, but we were physically destroyed at the line of scrimmage. They looked more like a football team. And, of course, the whole offseason emphasis was greater toughness, greater physicality, greater ability to, in those sorts of rough and tumble games, to hold our own. And the Vikings did nothing of the sort. It's a miracle they were even in that game late, for reasons we'll get into later as well. But I thought that was a complete mismatch all throughout the game, even before we were running into some injury issues as well. And again, I think the long-term question on the center probably is the most sobering, as we talked about with Lieber.
It is.
The possibility that he just might say, that's it.
Well, yeah.
And now you go back to what was our research on him before we made the deal? Because everybody clearly felt in football, well, this is an upgrade at the center position. But what was the other thing that was admittedly said at the time? You are getting guys who are a little longer in the tooth than you usually want to when you're making these kinds of acquisitions. And I know concussion histories are goofy. He might have gone this whole season without another concussion, right? But you wonder also a little bit about that history, looking back on it, whether you are running a significant risk going the direction that they are. And now you actually wonder, well, he's short term. I doubt he's going to be available. And then what about even long term? Could he just say, I've had enough? So, as somebody just mentioned, you thought yesterday was bad. The Browns are way better defensively. The Browns are very good defensively. On the other hand, the Browns offense is, I think, nowhere near as competent as the Steelers looked yesterday, although I would also add maybe the Vikings defense in a pretty mediocre performance had something to do with that as well.
Aquarius Home Services has your shot at 4 tickets to see Green Bay take on the Purple in early January, plus $500 in game day cash. Register for your chance to win today on the KFAN contest page, KFAN.com/furnace to enter. By the way, the Fan and 2 men and a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. Second keyword of the afternoon is credit. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword credit.
The toy department news of the day is that at least locally, is that the Minnesota Twins have dismissed their manager of the last 7 years. Rocco Baldelli is out. And we spent plenty of time talking about that earlier. We'll continue to intersperse conversation on it throughout the program. I forgot to favorite the Larry Mondello guy, Cheap Shot.
If you wait long enough, he'll load up another one.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's 100% true. I'll find it at some point. This isn't like after the fact stuff. We talked about this for weeks, that as far as I was concerned, you had to come out of the first 5 games with a record of 4-1. And look, I get it. The Ravens obviously aren't unbeatable. They got destroyed in Kansas City. So on any given Sunday, we're aware. It's not like the Ravens can't be beaten. We're talking about that's one of the teams in the meaty part of the schedule coming up after the bye. Green Bay, you could look at, well, they look like they're unbeatable, and now they've got a loss and a tie, right? But I think if you're realistic, you looked at this schedule and said, you can't mess around with that front end of it. And the Vikings have. And now they're at a point where if they I don't want to say the season's over if they lose in London against Cleveland, but I think it may well be. I mean, they would then be, 2-3?
Yeah.
At the end of a 5-game stretch in which I think 4-1 needed to be a minimum. I think, again, if you were really serious about it, you go 5, you run the table. You say, hey, we're going to get a fat schedule early, or fat record early, and give us a little chance to come back to the pack a little bit, and it's not going to harm us all that much.
Wilson Phillips at the end, just hold on.
Exactly right.
Hold on to your record.
That's it. Not Harrison Phillips.
No.
Who we might miss.
We might need him.
But Wilson Phillips, that's the song.
Could Harrison play offensive guard? Because that's the bit right now, right? Like,
well, quite frankly, yeah.
Both for sure,
yeah.
But just the injuries in the offensive line, I don't know how you combat those.
I don't either.
I just don't know how you fix that. And like even Lieber said, you're over in London right now. To even send some of your guys that aren't there, you got to send them over there. You can't do you could do a Cam Robinson type trade, I guess, if you wanted to try to find somebody, but you got to get him over there. It's not as easy as just having them come to the greatest airport ever, MSP.
Did anybody else get into this? I want to be sure this was accurate information and not AI generated, because you never know in 2025.
That's true.
Somebody did put together a compare and contrast between the traveling conditions for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the traveling conditions for the Minnesota Vikings.
I saw that.
And the allegation was that essentially the Steelers flew maybe enhanced coach, or it might have just been regular coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the shot of Vikings players all sitting first class, their own little cubicles.
The Kessler seats.
Exactly it. And it was, boy, the Vikings know how to take care of their players. The Steelers, not so much. Maybe we got it wrong. Maybe our players are too soft. Maybe we're making it too easy for our players. And maybe being on edge a little bit. Did it devastate the Steelers? I mean, did the Steelers look like they were moping around, feeling sorry for themselves?
They started pretty well.
They didn't get their own pod with their own screen and their own filet mignon twice during their flight over?
They started off the game pretty well, did they not?
Yes, they did.
Now, a 3 and out, that wasn't great.
No, that's true.
Right, a sack on the first play, but they established themselves. I wonder if we could get, and it's too late now, but maybe we could have gotten the Major League Cleveland Indians plane
yes.
that they trotted out in the 1989 Classic.
Yeah. Well,
maybe that was what we should have done.
Something to it. Speaking of the way it started, it actually, even defensively, started like this could be a lot of fun, because A-Raj looks every bit his current age in terms of mobility. But then, where is that one? 1, 2, 3.
Harrison Phillips, right? Number 2?
No. The how do you negate a pass rush?
That's number 4.
Number 4.
Aaron Rodgers, 21st year from Cal, has thrown 7 touchdowns and 3 picks. He's back to pass. He's sacked by Jalen Redmond right out of the gate, back back at the 22. One play, and down goes quarterback immortality.
We were getting cocky right there. That was the problem.
Receivers left, 2 right, empty backfield. Quick hitter over the middle. It's caught. The former Seahawk, DK Metcalf, into Vikings territory to the 45, and the big man rolls to the 43-yard line. That'll be a first down for the Steelers. It's a 14-yard gain, and that's that yards after catch you were talking about, Pete.
Absolutely. I mean, how long did Rodgers have the football in his hands? I mean, literally, he took the snap and it was out because he recognized the blitz, saw the hole in the coverage. That's where the defense has to be careful. But Rodgers is not surveying the field. He is getting rid of his football quickly.
Rodgers wants more. Back to pass. It's a shorty left side to that behemoth tight end. Darnell Washington, 6'7", 265. Quick hitting gain of 6 yards, making it 2nd and 4. And A-Rod and the Steelers, they're in a hurry. Aaron Rodgers, 1st and 10 from his own 20. He's 8 of 8 for 65 yards. Back to pass. Fast ball over the middle. DK Metcalf caught it on the run. He's to the 40, 50, the Vikings 40, to the 30, inside the 20. Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers. An 80-yard touchdown from Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf. And the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fans have these terrible towels waving all over Croke Park. Why? They have a 13-3 lead.
How do you negate a pass rush and an ailing offensive line? You throw quicker. I get it. Different team, different makeup, different receivers. Allegedly, this came up on the with Nordo, the Nordo project today. And your guy, Alec Lewis, basically said, well, the Vikings can't do that because their receivers don't win enough at the line of scrimmage.
What?
Which, if true, is a little bit frightening about Justin Jefferson, right?
Any of them.
Or any of them. But beyond that, and that the Vikings don't have the quarterbacks who can process that quickly, we were trying to have Alec on. He covers the team. I think that's an oversimplification, and I think it lets the coaching staff off the hook a little bit too easily. And I know, like I said, it can be apples and oranges, but what you saw, I mean, I'll be honest, after that opening play, the sack on Rodgers, I'm going, he's ponderous. He can't move. They're going to be all over him today because what they're going to do is they're going to know all he wants to do is throw short. So they're going to be clamping down on everything short. He's not going to have anything short, and then they're going to sack him like 9 times. That's how it felt after that first play. And you know what the Steelers did? We ain't messing. We're not holding the ball that long. We don't even care if it's a 3-yard pass and we get 2nd and 7. We're just going to keep grinding away at it, and we're going to have our quarterback make enough throws and give our receivers a chance to do something after the catch that they're going to become very frustrated because of what they are used to, which is obviously terrorizing quarterbacks and putting all kinds of pressure on a relatively, at this point in his career, immobile quarterback, notwithstanding his one scramble that worked out well, especially when he fumbled the ball and it went back up to a teammate. That was a horseshoe moment for them. We had a bunch of horseshoe moments ourselves. But that, to me, was, again, a significant part of the story, is that the Steelers were perfectly willing to play for another down. In other words, get it out of your hands, hope that a 3-yard play can become a 7, or a 7-yard play can become a 15, or in the case of the Metcalf play over the middle, a 10-yard pass can go for 80 yards if they take some bad angles, and our guy just makes a couple of good decisions getting away from the would-be tacklers. And it all but smothered and negated what the Vikings like to think of themselves as their strength defensively. You know, even with Rodgers, he's not going to know what hit him. We throw so many different things at you, so many different actions at you. We go inside, we go outside. We got 9 people at the line of scrimmage. We drop 3 of them off into a zone, 2 others into a man. And they just said, fine, we're not going to let him keep the ball. We're going to get it out of his hands. And I think Rodgers was in on the bid. I think he was fine with it. The stat was the shortest amount of time the ball was in his hands when he dropped back to throw since 2016.
Crazy.
Like 8 or 9 years. Even I can do that math. And we didn't know what to do with it. We did not know how to adjust to it. And again, the one thing Rodgers is, when he's throwing short, because all the stats were, if you look at his long numbers, they were atrocious through 3 games, right? And a lot of the passes he was completing were behind the line of scrimmage. But what he is accurate. And he does get the ball, even if it's a short pass, where it's on the money. It's at a place where the receiver generally doesn't have to reach back for it, doesn't have to slow down for it. And as I mentioned, it, to me, nullified all of the fancy stuff that B-Flow is capable of creating.
And they were in a hurry a little bit, not to snap it, but at least get up to the line.
Yeah, yes.
And Bursich made the point on the broadcast that gives Rodgers a chance to take a look at the 50 different things that we're probably trying to do.
Correct.
And he's smart enough to try to figure out, eliminate a bunch of stuff and go, all right, well, we're going to do this, and we're going to make it safe this way.
To your point, his surveying of the because Bursich, in one of those sound bites you played, said, well, he's not even looking around the field, surveying the field. He's just getting rid of the ball. Well, his surveying is happening before the snap,
exactly
as you say.
Exactly right.
And he's, I'm sure, saying, I got the 3-yard pass. I'll take it. That's what we got to do, because I'm not going to get sacked 12 times. I'm not going to be killed back here. Did we ever have another sack after the first one of the first play?
Yeah, Redmond had another one.
That's right. Okay.
Yep, he had another one.
Right.
I don't know if we had more after that, though.
That's true. And, in fact, I think that resulted in was that one where they had to end up kicking a field goal? I can't remember. But, the point is, it wasn't a consistent pressure, because they didn't have a chance to pressure. Meanwhile, our quarterback was getting absolutely and totally tortured as well. Bottom of the hour break, some more text to get to, and let's switch it up a little bit and talk about a cataclysmic, calamitous last, 4 or 5 days for the most successful professional sports franchise in this town. There's no other way to look at it. That's next.
This football season, Bell Bank is giving one KFAN listener each week $1,000 to pay it forward to a charity of their choice. Just head over to KFAN.com, keyword contest to learn more and enter. KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Minnesota Lynx will not even reach the WNBA Finals, let alone win their 5th title. The drive for 5 we were talking about. A couple of drives for 5 on Friday. The Vikings trying to become the first team ever to go 5-0 playing overseas in the regular season. That's out. And the Lynx to become the first WNBA team to win 5 titles. Maybe next year, but not this year. The series wrapped up last night. They gave it the old college try, and then predictably fell off the end of the earth in the 4th and final quarter with their best player in street clothes and their head coach. I don't even know if she was in the building. Are you allowed to be in the building when you're suspended?
I thought I saw she was at their Phoenix area hotel.
At their hotel as well. That, of course, be the head coach, Cheryl Reeve. By now, most of you have heard, I'm sure, or seen, or both, her rant after the pivotal Game 3 loss and the series of meltdowns that led to her ejection from that game. Let's listen, in case you have missed it, just for the record, to reintroduce the subject to Cheryl Reeve. This is the expurgated version.
There should be no cuss words.
Cleaned up as far as we know.
Should be.
After the Game 3 setback, I think the final score was 84-76 in favor of the Phoenix Mercury.
Who was it that asked about officiating before the game? Is that you, Kendra? And we talked about how dangerous it can be. You're hearing it from the other series. You're hearing other coaches. You're hearing Becky talk about when you let the physicality happen, people get hurt. There's fights. And this is the look that our league wants for some reason. We were trying to play through it. We tried not to make excuses. One of the best players in the league shot 0 free throws. 0. And she had 5 fouls. 0 free throws. Got her shoulder pulled out and finished the game with her leg being taken out and probably has a fracture. And so this is what our league wants. Okay. But I want to call for a change of leadership at the league level when it comes to officiating. It's bad for the game. The officiating crew that we had tonight, for the leadership to deem those 3 people semifinals playoff worthy is malpractice. I can take an L with the best of them. I don't think we should have to play through more than what they did. We got players. I think it's crap. And there's no call. And all of them said it wasn't my call. I don't know. I didn't have that. I didn't see it that awful.
Let me put this as succinctly as I can. Based on her behavior during the game, after she was ejected with some fans, and what she said in the post-game press conference, let's cut to the chase here. If the late, great Bob Knight behaves that way, do you know what we call him? A bore. A jackass. We say it's completely unacceptable and completely over the line. And when is, in the case of Knight, Indiana University going to do something about it? NBA, I should say the WNBA leadership gets ripped early and often on this show, and probably gets ripped too often because it's become it's the low-hanging fruit. They've earned a lot of it, but they did exactly what they needed to do. I think they did the only thing they could have done, suspend her. There were, I know, people I heard to say, well, why don't you hold off the suspension? I mean, you got the critical Game 4 coming up. It's a WNBA semifinals. No. As far as I'm concerned, the league showed a backbone. You could say they should have shown one sooner, and not just with Cheryl Reeve, but I don't think they left her, or I should say Reeve left them with any choice. You can believe, as many do, that WNBA officiating is a problem. I don't even necessarily disagree with it, although I think it's a little bit more complicated than the average rube who follows the WNBA indeed believes. But let's be clear about something for me again. There's no martyrdom for Cheryl Reeve. As great a coach as she has been, as accomplished as she has been, the referees are not the reason that the Minnesota Lynx are eliminated. The Minnesota Lynx blew a 20-point lead at home in Game 2. We did the play-by-play. You did a number of the turnovers in the third quarter that then led to, they were still up by 8 in the fourth, but got almost nothing done in the fourth quarter of that game as well. And let's remember a couple of other things. As great a player as Nafisa Collier is and has been, in the third and fourth quarters of games 2 and 3, she finished with a grand total of 9 points. 2 points total in the 2 fourth quarters. She was not a factor. Now, the comeback from Reeve will be, well, that's because she's getting brutalized. And should she probably get a few more free throws? Yes, I don't even disagree with that. But this is a team that couldn't get the ball inbounds at home, had at least 1, maybe 2 timeouts.
2.
The player didn't use it. The head coach didn't scream for it. Had a number of other significant turnovers as well. But the bigger issue, again, is, like I said, we do not hesitate, nor should we, to call this behavior out when it's this boorish, and that was a boorish performance. Including, I'm not leaving out, I mean, it wasn't just she got thrown out. I think she was disrespectful to her own players and her own staffers with how physical they had to get to stop her from attempting to advance on the officials. Then she leaves. And I'm sure got some cat calls from fans. Yeah, that's going to happen in that situation. And again, she was out of the Bob Knight playbook. She bleeps off to them on her way out to several people. No other way to describe it. That's behavior worthy of a bore. And we've called it that when Bob Knight did it. And that's what she was that night. I have, as you know, nothing but respect for what she's accomplished. But you got to call this for what it is. And I don't think we need to somehow have to hesitate because it's Cheryl Reeve or because it's a woman. This was over the line, absolutely, in my opinion, suspendable behavior. Now, we'll never know what might have happened if she was able to coach Game 4. Maybe the relative calm of the associate head coach was something that the team actually needed because he is relatively, Tebow, right? He's relatively calm compared to Cheryl. We'll never know. But she is responsible for not being out there for game number 4. I also don't believe it was a foul. I think it was obviously horrible luck. The collision that ensued after the steal, it can't get any worse from a luck standpoint to have your player injured. How significantly, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been announced after Cheryl got very dramatic about it that night. But I do not think that was a foul. And let me add one other thing before we get in the middle of this. It's a fascinating contradiction how this league works. The league has tended to bristle against, we don't believe in negativity or hate or too much criticism, or we don't want to be like those other leagues. We want to be a little, we're a very, what's the word for it? We're a group of individuals who have built this thing together, and we think to a certain extent we're in this together. So we don't like the hate that might come from people evaluating the way they do in other sports and other leagues. These are, after all, here's what we're told. These are human beings. You know who else are human beings? The refs.
The officials.
All that seems to go out the bleeping window for Cheryl and everybody else, especially coaches who have all mobilized. And again, I think a lot of their criticism is legit, but I will tell you, a lot of the calls that are viewed as these ridiculous one-sided calls are actually, I think, more judgment calls than you think. It's become too easy of a crutch when you lose a game, even for a legendary coach, to want to just see what... Same thing, Becky Hammond. You heard it last week. Refs are killing us. BS. You're frustrated that you lost control of this series that you had control over and you let it go. And that's why you're frustrated. I don't think there's a larger issue here at all. And I'll again remind you, well, whoever these refs are, what about the fact that they're human? Men and women, I might add. If that matters, it shouldn't, but it might to some people. It's okay to hate on them. That's convenient. When what we've been lectured about over and over again is this is not a league where we're interested. We're all in this together. It's about no one person, certainly not just about Caitlin Clark. We've been told that over and over and over again. So I thought it was a really bad, disturbing look all around. And I'm hoping at some point, Cheryl Reeve's a smart woman, man. And she's very competitive. There's no question about that. That at some point she will rethink it and say, look, I got my frustrations, but that's not me. That can't be me. And some effort after things have cooled, emotions have cooled, that she might offer more of a mea culpa.
So this team and this franchise, they are coming off of how they lost the WNBA championship a year ago, right? With terrible officiating calls.
Correct.
And they tried...
Well, one big one, especially.
One huge one, of course, the missed travel and everything that came with that. And so they spent the entire season trying to make that whole thing right? With that in the background, with that being one of the backdrops. So I'm sure as this thing is going along, that doesn't just go away. They're already probably simmering under the surface because of what happened a year ago. But I'll say if they are spending, and I worry that they are, from comments from all the coaches, right? I mean, all the coaches.
Yes.
On social media and obviously even at the game, Tebow got fined. Brunson got fined. Whalen, I don't think got fined, but she tweeted about it too.
Did she? I didn't even notice that.
Basically, if Bill Simmons is tweeting about it.
Oh, yeah, because Simmons said he thought it was a foul.
Yeah.
And we can have that argument. We can have that argument.
Because I could, either way on the foul.
Right.
I could see it being a foul. I could see it not being a foul. What you can't do is what Cheryl did at the end of it. And I'm worried. I mean, the president is tweeting out USA Today articles about it. And I'm worried that if they're spending more time on that, which of course is frustrating, we went through this with the Wolves and the Thunder, right? With what SGA gets to do and what Ant doesn't get. Finchie said the same thing, right? After that series. He doesn't get the whistle that some of these guys do. We got to figure out a way to do it. It happens in other leagues. If they're spending more time obsessing over what happened in game, I guess that would have been three.
Yeah.
And not where they really lost the series, which is in the third quarter of game 2, then I don't see how they get out of this and move forward from this, because game 2 in the third quarter had nothing to do with nothing.
No.
It was completely preventable. They had, as Phil Jackson said, that series was dead bleeping meat. They messed around with it, and here we were a couple of games later. That opened the door for the rest of all this stuff. They have to at least acknowledge that a little bit if they're going to go nuts about all the other stuff.
They scored 31 points in the second half of that game. Game 2, I'm talking about. 31 points at home. Right? You're not going to win doing that. You're also not going to win scoring 9 points in the fourth quarter of game 3. 9. Who are we kidding here? I mean, let's get serious. And as I mentioned, I covered Bob Knight. I was there in college when he was coaching. I continued to follow him for many, many years. That was Bob Knight at his worst. And maybe even worse in a sense because of what she did as she's leaving the court. I mean, I think you can make the argument that the suspension should be greater than a game. I really do. And again, the idea, this league has to make a decision. It either has to ordain to its head coaches, bring them all in and say, we're going to have a come to Jesus understanding here, where if you think the license that you all felt you had, or sort of building on one another, allowed you to say anything at any time after any game that often was a loss because of mistakes your team committed, that we're going to do this again this whole next year, we're not. It's exhausting for the league. It's a bad look for the league. And if the coaches want to come back and say, well, you want us to stop doing it, then fix it.
Help us out.
But I think part of the issue is I don't think the officiating is very good. But let me ask you this question. Do you think women's college basketball officiating is better, good, worse than WNBA officiating?
I think it's about the same, because I think a lot of the people do both.
Oh, is that right?
There's some crossover.
Okay. Well, there may be.
It's not great.
And maybe it's money, but I'm not even sure it's money. I guess what I'm saying is I came away from some of these games over the course of this season, some of these rants, and then I've looked at the plays that were but this was an example, and I don't think all of them were anywhere near as egregious as was being presented. I think it's become too easy to just go along with the flow on this. I'm not standing up for all officials, or that there might not be some more incompetent than others. But I also think it's a crutch for any coach anywhere at any level, right? It's just human nature. You're frustrated.
Yeah, and fans and players.
You don't want to look inward. It's somebody else's problem. But I think this league, for the purposes of its continued growth, they got to figure this out, because I don't think there's any comparison between the nightly ranting from WNBA head coaches and the nightly ranting from NBA head coaches. I don't think it's close. I really don't. I think it's far more pervasive, and it's become too easy to blame everything on that. And, the question of physicality, somebody said today, is reffing harder to do below the rim? Is it that WNBA players are more physical in general, or less physical, or less accustomed to a level of physicality to the degree that men are? I don't even know how to explain it, but I guess I'm rejecting the notion that most people have just accepted as gospel, that this is the worst officiating in history. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I think it's become too easy to be a crutch for too many coaches, even legendary ones who on a given day are pissed off and they just want to go off on the refs.
In terms of the physicality, we had that same conversation with the NBA, right? In the NBA playoffs?
Yes.
It's a completely different game in the playoffs than it is in the regular season, is it not?
But why is it more seemingly accepted in the NBA than it is the WNBA?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. And that's kind of my point, was that I don't know if they are any different. I don't know if it is dramatically different for the WNBA as it is for the NBA. Everybody, and there's times where it's frustrating, right? I mean, we just went through it with the Thunder, where it's like you can do all these things and nobody can do it. And it just seems like they're fouling every play. Finchie had his thing from February, but everybody kind of I think the Thunder finally got some pushback on it nationally and publicly, especially with SGA. But most people understood, like, the screens you're setting in the playoffs, the way you're guarding those actions in the playoffs, what's allowed at the rim in the playoffs is very different than the cliched Tuesday night in Milwaukee in February, right? So I guess that's my point.
Yeah,
same thing is it?
Well, in the WNBA, they've made it sound like it's been a problem all season too, right?
Physicality?
Yeah,
officiating for sure.
Officiating and there's the consensus seems to be that players are allowed to be too physical with one another and foul too easily without those fouls being called. I don't know what the line is. Can we throw out this is another possibility? I don't think. I mean, if you compared the style of who do we lose to? The Mercury, Phoenix. I think they are wired or built to be a more physical team.
Alyssa Thomas is for sure
than we are.
Yeah,
we are not a particularly physical team. And what do physical teams ad nauseum through history in any sport say? If you're playing a team that's more finessey, well, you got to try to knock them around and see how they respond to it. And quite frankly, I don't think the Lynx responded all that well. But all that being said, as you said, you got to go back to the beginning. You're up 20 at home. The series is over. And you let it go. It's not illegal. It happens. It's a bad, but that has nothing to do with the officiating. And even, as I said, if your best player, whatever the reason, is irrelevant offensively in the third and particularly fourth quarters of the two key games, even before she got hurt, then it's not going to be your series. Suddenly, you're not as in control of this thing as you thought you were.
And last night, Kayla McBride's doing what she does.
Yeah, she was terrific.
On a heater, and that's how she's played all season, right? That's why she was, had a great year. And fourth quarter, it took until the final 2 minutes to get her shots again. And that's, so I get it. They're mad about all that stuff, but there was some of the same stuff that caught up with them a year ago before the Breanna Stewart non-call.
Right.
Caught up with them again, and we said that all season long. You got to have better guard play. You can't have that many turnovers. You got to be able to get your shot when you need it, and they weren't able to do it. Stephanie White, by the way, the Fever coach, said earlier today she was fined for her comments in support of Cheryl Reeve yesterday, and Becky Hammon was also fined for her comments as well. So the WNBA commissioner's fine pot has gotten bigger. Her press conference at the finals this year, remember how Christine Brennan talked about it when she joined you, and she's talked about it in the book?
Yes.
Her press conference is going to be fascinating this year because she's going to have a ton of questions that I don't think she's ready to answer or has not answered yet. There's so much more spotlight on the commissioner.
Well, there's no question
because of the last year.
Their leadership is lacking. There is no doubt about that.
And I think more people have noticed, and they're going to come ready to go this year.
That's it. But again, if you come out of this thing as a Lynx fan saying we got robbed and this is all on the Zebras, even if you want to argue about the call, the key call here, whether it was a foul or not, then you're missing the thread of the story, and there's just no other way around it. When again, it's like this stuff, they're acting like all this stuff kind of happened to them. They're supposed to be the Minnesota Lynx. They're the best team in basketball this entire season, and it wasn't even close. And they let that get away. They got away from the things they did well at the wrong moments. And part of that is, I think the Mercury are good.
Yeah, semifinals.
There's more balance in this league than there's been. There's no question about that. And so there were some vulnerabilities that the Mercury took advantage of, and they just didn't respond particularly well. And then the head coach lost her mind. There's no other way to look at it. Top five?
Drake Lindsay wins an award. The Vikings lose. And what was your favorite Rocco Baldelli, the Baldali Llama moment?